What happens when a former member of the world's biggest boy band decides to throw a little shade at the undisputed king of pop residency pricing? You're about to witness a moment that broke through the noise of the entire music industry and made even the most casual fans stop scrolling. There's a single comment buried in a recent conversation that has sparked a debate about loyalty, value, and the cost of nostalgia. And if you don't watch this breakdown right now, you're going to be the only one in the group chat tomorrow who doesn't understand why everyone is suddenly comparing stadium receipts. Stick around, because the real reason this one-liner went viral isn't just about the money. It's about something far more personal that we don't usually get to see, and I'm revealing exactly what that is by the end of this report. Look, I have to admit, I woke up this morning thinking it was going to be a slow news day in the world of pop culture. Maybe just another cycle of album teasers and Fashion Week photos. But then I saw the clip and I knew immediately that the internet was about to have a field day. And if you've been anywhere near a social media app in the last 24 hours, you've probably already seen the screenshots, heard the audio snippets, or at the very least felt the seismic shift in the Directioner universe. Because yes, Zayn Malik, the notoriously private, rarely interviewed, and often elusive former member of One Direction, has spoken out. And according to multiple reports and a very candid conversation that is now being analyzed with the intensity of the Zapruder film, he's made a comment about Harry Styles' concert ticket prices that has everyone asking the same question. Was that just a bit of classic British banter, or is there something deeper simmering beneath the surface? And I want to be very clear from the top here, because we run a tight ship and we don't deal in reckless speculation or tabloid garbage. Everything we're discussing today is sourced directly from Zayn's own public comments, and we are simply providing the context and the analysis that you, the discerning viewer, deserve. Because to understand why a throwaway line about the cost of seeing As It Was live has turned into the #1 trending topic across multiple platforms, you have to rewind the tape just a little bit and understand where these two men are standing right now, both figuratively and literally. It's been years since the band went on that infamous hiatus, and in that time, Harry Styles hasn't just built a solo career. According to industry metrics and common sense, he's constructed a cultural and commercial empire. We're talking sold-out stadiums, Grammy wins, and a residency at the kind of venue where you genuinely consider taking out a small personal loan just to cover the service fees. And it's almost become a running joke online, one that I've certainly chuckled at, that seeing Harry Styles is less like buying a ticket to a concert and more like making a down payment on a very modest used sedan. And it's within that very specific, very expensive context that Zayn Malik, sitting down for a rare promotional interview, decided to lob this verbal grenade. When the topic of live performances came up, because Zayn has famously had a complicated relationship with the stage and with touring anxiety, he reportedly, and I'm quoting the widely circulated audio here, made a reference to the price point of certain shows. And while he didn't say Harry's name with a sneer or a scowl, the implication was so crystal clear that you could practically hear the collective gasp of millions of fans holding their limited edition vinyl pressings. And this is where the story gets truly fascinating, because if you're watching this and thinking, okay, it's just a joke about money, who cares, you're missing the most important layer of this entire narrative, which I'm going to unpack for you right now. We need to talk about the dynamics here, because in the world of fandom, and I say this with all the love and respect for the communities that keep pop music alive, nothing is ever just about the surface level. And the reason this specific soundbite has a longer shelf life than your average celebrity gossip item is because Zayn Malik is the one who said it. This isn't some random comedian on a late-night show making an observation about inflation hitting the concert economy. This is a person who stood on the same stages, shared the same management, and walked the same path as Harry Styles for the formative years of their lives. So when Zayn makes a playful jab, the volume of that jab gets amplified by the history of the entire band. And you better believe the fans who have an archival memory sharper than any supercomputer immediately started cross-referencing this with every known interview, every knowing glance, and every cryptic tweet from the last decade. And I have to offer a bit of my own perspective here, because I think it's what makes this story human rather than just a dry news report. Honestly, I find it refreshingly normal. There's something so wonderfully mundane about the idea that even if you're a global superstar worth millions, you might still look at the price of your former bandmate's floor seats and go, blimey, that's a bit steep, innit? It's the same energy as checking the Venmo request from a friend who ordered an extra appetizer. It cuts through the polished PR veneer and reminds us that underneath the moody black and white photo shoots and the high-fashion runways, there's just a guy from Bradford who, like the rest of us, might have sticker shock. But, and there is always a but in these stories, we have to look at the flip side, because while my personal take is that it was likely harmless humor born out of the very British tradition of taking the mickey out of your mates, the context of Zayn's own relationship with live performance adds an incredible layer of weight to his words. Let's not forget, and I'm not breaking any new ground here, but it's essential for the analysis, Zayn has been incredibly open about his struggles with performing live since leaving One Direction, citing severe anxiety and a desire for a more controlled environment. So when you hear him point at the exorbitant cost of a show he himself has admitted to being too overwhelmed to perform, you have to wonder if there's a tiny fraction of commentary wrapped up in that humor. Not a malicious dig, but perhaps a quiet, subconscious observation about the very machinery he stepped away from. And yet, the story takes another twist when you dive into the fan reaction, because if you think this is a simple case of Team Zayn versus Team Harry, you haven't been paying attention to how the internet actually operates in 2026. The majority of the noise, according to the trending feeds I've been monitoring, is actually not anger or tribal warfare, it's laughter, and more importantly, it's validation. The comments section under every repost of this clip is filled with people who are not defending Harry's honor or hailing Zayn as the truth teller, but rather they are simply saying, he's one of us. It's the ultimate relatability moment from a guy who has spent most of his career trying to appear anything but relatable. In a bizarre way, Zayn Malik just became the voice of the financially exhausted concert goer, and I find that absolutely hilarious and also kind of brilliant from a PR perspective, even if it was unintentional. But here's where I have to throw in the necessary caveat, the fine print that separates responsible commentary from clickbait farming. We do not know the tone of voice in the room. Audio can be a tricky thing, and without seeing his expression on his face, we are all, myself included, projecting our own feelings onto his words. For all we officially know, this could have been a deeply affectionate, eye-rolling tribute to a friend's massive success, the kind of thing you say when you're proud of someone, but also want to remind them that you remember when they wore skinny jeans and had a side French. There is no official confirmation of any rift here, and it is alleged by some sources close to the artists that they maintain a cordial if distant respect for each other's work. It is not our place here to manufacture drama where there likely is none, but it is absolutely our place to analyze why the public latched onto this like a lifeline. This brings me to the economic side of the story, which is where the humor actually meets a very real and, frankly, a very frustrating reality for music lovers everywhere. It's not just Harry Styles, let's be fair. We've seen it across the board. We saw it with Taylor Swift, we saw it with Beyoncé, we've seen it with Oasis reunion tickets causing a national meltdown in the UK. The dynamic pricing model and the resale market have turned the act of seeing your favorite artist into a financial blood sport. So when Zayn says what he said, he's not just poking fun at a colleague, he's tapping into a widespread cultural frustration that has been simmering for years. It's a moment of solidarity that we didn't see coming from a guy who often seems to exist in his own beautiful Pennsylvania-based bubble. And that's the hook that keeps this story alive. It's not just about 1D nostalgia, though believe me, that's the rocket fuel that launched this into the stratosphere, because every time two former members cross paths in the news, the reunion rumor mill starts churning like a jet engine. And I can promise you the comments are already flooded with people analyzing this as some kind of 4D chess move to force a group dinner. But I think the real sticking point, the reason you're still watching this video right now and haven't clicked off to watch a compilation of cute animal videos, is because we're all waiting to see if there's a response. The open loop that has the entire music industry and the Gossip Girl-like blogs holding their breath is simple. What happens next? Does Harry Styles, known for his impeccable and often unbothered public demeanor, wink at the camera during his next show and dedicate Kiwi to anyone who found a discount code? Does he simply ignore it and let the headlines fade into the white noise of the news cycle? Or, and this is the scenario that has social media on red alert, does Zayn clarify his remarks? If there's one thing we've learned about Zayn Malik in the last few years, it's that he values clarity. He's not one to let a narrative run wild without stepping in to correct the record if he feels he's been misinterpreted. So the silence in the immediate aftermath is in itself a form of communication. It suggests either he doesn't care about the reaction, or he stands by the sentiment enough to let the world chew on it. And while we're on the subject of standing by things, let's take a quick detour into the creative work that prompted this interview in the first place, because it's easy to get lost in the spectacle of a feud that may not exist. But Zayn is out here promoting new music that actually sounds incredible, and I'd be doing a disservice to the story if I didn't mention that this whole conversation about prices is happening against the backdrop of an artist who has found his voice on his own terms. His recent material leans into a raw, country-tinged vulnerability that feels miles away from the stadium pop of his past. It's almost poetic, isn't it? You have one guy playing to 70,000 people a night, and another guy making music that sounds like it was recorded in a cabin during a rainstorm. And yet, the link between them, forged in a talent show dressing room over a decade ago, remains unbreakable in the public consciousness. And that's the beauty of this entire episode. It highlights the different paths taken from the same starting line. One path leads to a residency where the ticket is a status symbol. The other path leads to a more insular artistic retreat. Neither path is wrong, but the contrast is what